With over 551 million users and over $30 billion in market cap, the evolution of Spotify's rise has been questioned repeatedly. Any spelling, grammar, or punctuation errors have been corrected. The controversial rise to fame made famous singers like Taylor Swift and big podcast owners like Joe Rogan quit the platform, but for what exact reason? Let's discuss Spotify's controversial rise to fame, from being an unknown music service to becoming one of the most famous, controversial, and arguably illegal ones. Daniel Ek, the founder of Spotify, went through a big quarter-life crisis that motivated him to do more. But his background was related to something other than being poor. He did sell his company at Vertigo, which gave him millionaire status, but even after partying for months, he didn't feel happy. From partying in the most expensive hotels to buying luxury cars, nothing seemed to be working, and Daniel lost his touch in life. After selling his advertising company to Trade Doubler, Daniel became a millionaire. His parents were proud, and everyone around him thought he was a prodigy, but inside, he was dying. He needed a new meaning, a new purpose, and a new goal in his life again. So instead of getting complacent, Daniel decided to use the money he made from the business to shock the music industry with his new invention with a twist. A service called Napster was top-rated during this time, and I'm sure most of you have already heard about it. Napster allowed people to share music with each other, but got into a lot of trouble because it was illegal. Interestingly enough, Daniel himself was a fan of these free file sharing services, but he knew people weren't buying music like they used to, and instead, they would just share music by using one of these apps. That's where Daniel realized a crazy opportunity. What if he could create a solution to end most of the piracy and revolutionize the music industry? So he thought of creating a similar service to Napster, but this time, it would allow musicians and record labels to earn money from the music. So, instead of giving away all the revenue like on Napster, Daniel decided to make a platform to have all the songs worldwide and pay the artists a percentage of the streaming cut. Moreover, it would also be funded by ads, which means Daniel could make good money from it. While this idea seemed like the next big thing, he got zero support from the record labels. Unfortunately, they weren't on board with the tech entrepreneur. Daniel worked with Martin Lawrenson, who'd become Spotify's co-founder, and both businessmen tried their best to recruit the most excellent coders in the summer of 2006. Instead of giving up their idea, Daniel and Martin realized that the thought alone wouldn't do anything and needed to create a working prototype for it to land. But that's where the illegal rise began. To show companies how good their product was, Spotify needed to download, yes, illegally, millions of dollars worth of songs just to build a working prototype. It was a complex problem. Daniel and Martin could only convince the music industry by creating the prototype, but needed to download the music illegally to generate the prototype. That's where the Spotify team worked day and night to create a working prototype, and most of them would stay in the company late at night to play poker and just chill. So, within the first couple of months of working, the team did it. They created the first version of Spotify. From having some of the best algorithms to diverse music, it almost felt unreal back in the day. And even though the internet sucked back then, Spotify was fast and would play instantly after you click a song. But the revolutionary feature was downloading the song, as anyone could buffer the song while it was downloaded in the piece. So, no more waiting. Everyone who used the service loved it, and Daniel was proud of his creation. But that's where trouble just began rising. Sony, Warner, and Universal were the big music groups at that time. Daniel flew everywhere to talk to all the major companies and convince them of his idea. While his idea was nothing less than brilliant, all the companies who heard free instantly lost interest in Daniel's idea and didn't believe in earning from ads. In the day, companies wanted a fixed price every time a song was played, which was the opposite of Spotify's business model. This was when Daniel's anxiety rose. Spotify's money was running out, and nothing seemed to make sense. So Daniel knew he would need to do something to save his business, or else everyone would go bankrupt. And that's where Daniel came up with a brilliant idea. The idea was to create a paid version of Spotify that would work on a monthly fee. Moreover, the record labels and publishers would get around 70% of all the revenue generated along with Spotify stock. However, introducing this model was costly, and whether this was sustainable was still being determined. However, Spotify got the consent of most music labels to use their music, and in 2008, Spotify officially launched. And even if things were going well for the streaming services, music labels started threatening to make changes according to their liking. But aside from record labels, many musicians and artists were causing trouble. Some even pulled their whole music catalog from Spotify, while others needed help staying consistent. We have artists like Metallica, Pink Floyd, the Beatles, and even Bob Dylan. We'd also see other musicians, like Taylor Swift, publicly criticizing Spotify due to paying them less. Taylor raised a lot of concern, making many people leave Spotify entirely. She even said that Spotify was devaluing the music industry, but it wasn't in Spotify's hands to control how much money the musicians made. But on the other hand, it does make sense for individual artists to become angry because they didn't own any share in the company. And even if most of these people quit Spotify, they later returned due to its convenience and brilliance. Even amidst all the controversy, Spotify began getting popular even more quickly. It was making a lot of revenue and breaking records, and users loved streaming rapidly from everywhere. They then started dealing with companies like Facebook to integrate their services. By 2011, Spotify already had 1 million paying subscribers every single month. But even with all this money, Spotify could have been more profitable. At this point, people questioned whether the company would be genuinely profitable and not just turn revenue to give up to music labels. We saw the launch of Apple Music, which seemingly outshined Spotify to a more significant degree as it was tied with Apple itself. Moreover, Apple was making it intentionally difficult for Spotify to get updates, and it was just slow. Moreover, with a 30% cut to Apple, Spotify was in deep trouble. We also had some other competitors in the industry, like Tidal, Google Music, Amazon, and much more. But this is where Spotify's original idea played its part. Since it was free of ads, this streaming service remained the most popular, even with many new streaming services coming out. Interestingly enough, the free version was very efficient for bringing in new users who would later convert to the paid version of the app. But the main problem was still outside. Record labels had a lot of leverage on Spotify, and everyone was taking way too much from Daniel. However, Daniel had some solutions. In 2019, Spotify began heavily investing in podcasts. With over $1 billion in investment, Spotify brought in a lot of exciting content. In other words, Spotify wanted to own content. The second solution was that Spotify began giving more personalized music experience to the users, which is why Spotify invested heavily in machine learning. But here's where the main controversy comes from. Spotify began recommending songs that took people away from the major record labels and towards the songs that were easy to license. It was like a monopoly for Spotify to bring users to new artists just so they could keep more revenue, and the industry took notice quickly. Spotify would need to pay less to record labels and musicians and take more money themselves. But the point is that Spotify suddenly has a lot of leverage over the music industry due to personalized recommendations. It would be bad for other musicians if they suddenly start recommending random artists with 2 songs. Some reports even say that Spotify wants to use age-generated artists in the future. So does that mean Spotify demands complete control over the music industry, or is it a form of revenge they're taking from the record label? Let me know what you think down below. As always, please subscribe to this channel and ring the bell icon for future videos like these. Until next time.